Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time Podcast. My name is Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch. Today's special guest is part of horror history as she was the first present-day victim in the original Friday the 13th, the best horror series ever made. She played Annie, the hitchhiking camp counselor who just wanted to cook for the children of Camp Crystal Lake. But she was warned, she was doomed, and on Friday 13th, nothing could save her. We couldn't be happier to have this Jeep-jumping American original here with us today. Please welcome to the podcast, Robbi Morgan.
Hello.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm terrific today and so happy to be here to talk to you guys.
Oh, we are so happy to have you. So, look, we heard you mention that you grew up in New Jersey, but spent a ton of time in New York City since you were a child actress. So we were wondering, how did you first get started in the business and what was it like performing at such a young age?
Well, that's okay. So I'm not going to make this too long of a story.
Oh, it's fine.
But my mom and dad were vaudevillians. They were acrobats. And then, my oldest brother was in the act with them. He's 11 years older than me. And when he needed to go to kindergarten, they figured it's time to get off the road. I mean, burlesque was coming in and, it was time to go. So they settled in New Jersey, where the rest of the family was, and my mom and dad opened a dancing school. And the New Jersey that we settled in was 9 miles from New York City. So, I kind of feel more like a New Yorker than a Jersey girl, because from a very, very early age, I started working in New York, started like very early, like at 5.
Wow.
At 5. And my brothers and sisters, we all worked in the business. And so we were in New York every day, auditioning, working. Yeah. And
wait, so by the time you started, were your parents not doing the act anymore? Because I guess I'm wondering, would they have wanted to first pull you into that acrobatic performance?
Well, no, my brother was in the act with them because vaudeville was coming to an end. And Again, my brother is 11 years older than me. But so he was in the act with them and would give them, like he would tell jokes to give them a breather, like in between tricks and stuff. So very vaudeville, very cute. Like, my dad would say, Gary, how old are you? And he'd say, I'm 4. I would have been 5, but my daddy was bashful. And little cute jokes like that, like, hey, Gary, did you take a bath last night? Why, Dad? Is one missing? So it was all, and what an incredible time the three of them must have had. But it was long gone by the time my other brother and I came along.
And originally, your name was Robin Pinansky. When did you change to Robbi Morgan?
Tim.
Is that bad?
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
Yes. I'm Robin Pinansky.
I love it. Robin Pinansky.
So I'm Robin Pinansky. And when I did my first little job, it was on TV at 5. So, we all took the name Morgan because the name of my mom and dad's act was Morgan and May. So we took the name Morgan. And so I was Robin Morgan for the first little job that I did at 5. It was a little show called Kraft Music Hall with Rock Hudson.
Oh.
And there were like 6 little girls, as Shirley Temple, and we all did a number. So Robin Morgan was fine for that job. But at 6.5, I got a job that was on stage, an off-Broadway show. And there was another Robin Morgan in the Union of Equity, the theater union. So they said to my mom and dad, there's another Robin Morgan in the union. You've got to change her name. Does she have a middle name? So my mom was like, no, but we always call her Robbie. Would Robbi Morgan be okay? And they said yes. And there you have it. That's how I became Robbi Morgan.
I love that story. We've listened to some of your interviews and I don't think I've heard that before of how the name change came up, but I love it. So you're saying if that other girl wasn't named Robin Morgan, you would have been known Robin Morgan for your career.
Yes.
I like it with just the I.
There's only a few people that call me Robin. I have one brother that calls me Rob, and he refuses to call me Robbie.
That's
so
funny.
I'm Robin to him. And I like it. It's funny.
Yeah. No, and I think it's great and it sets you apart. You know, we always ask people on this show who have been in horror movies, because a lot of people who've been in horror movies aren't necessarily fans of horror movies, but we always ask people, growing up, were there any horror movies that you saw that made an impact on you at a young age?
Yes. Yes. Because my mom and dad, like there were musicals on in the house all the time. There were never sports, you know, and my mom would stay up late and watch old movies. So, you know, like to this day, I cannot watch Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Oh, it's creepy.
Cannot watch it. It is so scary. So that one, some probably Psycho, like definitely Psycho too. There was this weird movie called Caged. That was really, really creepy and scary.
Wow.
Can't watch that one. Wait, let me think what else.
But Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is kind of, what's the word I'm looking? It's kind of campy. I mean,
yeah.
Can you watch it today?
It's still creepy, I think.
It's really, no, it's campy, but it's really scary. Betty Davis is.
Yeah, she's not sweet.
No.
Oh, no. And yeah, very scary. But you know, guys, I was in a horror movie as a kid.
Yes, actually, our next question was about that, because for our listeners, some of you may not know, Friday the 13th was not Robbi Morgan's first horror movie. In 1971, you were in a horror movie with Debbie Reynolds and Shelley Winters called What's the Matter with Helen? And you played a little girl who sings a number called Oh, You Nasty Man. And you were just like 9 years old, right?
Yes.
What was that experience like? Did you get to meet Debbie and Shelley and all of them?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. It was so much fun. It was a crazy time at home. Because my other brother was doing a Broadway show at the time. And in my house, like my mom's dancing school was in full swing. And so it was always like, okay. And I was doing that Broadway show too, but I was in the chorus. And my brother, Gary, who lived out here in California, called home and said, "Hey, Robbie, could you do a Mae West accent?" And I was like, "Sure. Who is he?"
You know, I love that. Sure. Who is he?
Yeah, because we were all game. Like we were all working all the time. So I was like, sure. So he told me what to say. So what happened was I had to go to California to audition. Right. So I think my mom came with me on that audition. And my brother Gary told me exactly what to say as Mae West. You know, at the same time, you know, my leading up to that, I was in an off-Broadway show playing Shirley Temple. Oh. And so in the movie, one little girl plays Shirley Temple, who's Dennis Weaver's daughter. And the other little girl, Rosalie Greenbaum, was my name, was going to play Mae West in like Debbie's recital, in the little dancing school in the movie's recital. So when I got to the audition, my brother had briefed me with things like this. "Is that a pistol in your pocket? Are you happy to see me?"
And that's amazing that you're doing that at 9.
A 9-year-old should all know that.
Yeah. Or he said, do this one, Robbie. He says, "When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better." And so I got the job.
That is amazing. And you know, Robbie, if you can believe this, we found this movie, watched it, really enjoyed it. It's really creepy. I mean, not counting the fun, like kid dancing performances, Shelley Winters is terrifying. Like she, you know, and it's almost like a old single white female-ish thing, because she kind of becomes obsessed with Debbie Reynolds. And so I'm telling everyone out there, if you can find this movie, see it, not only to see Robbie's performance, because your performance is so good. You're dancing, everything. So and the movie is chilling.
Yeah, there's some visuals, like some images that are stuck in your head.
I know. And well, as kids, we weren't allowed to go near Shelley Winters.
I've heard that she's not the sweetest offset.
Well, she was definitely kind of in that crazy, you know, space, you know, And so we didn't get to play with Shelley Winters at all. But Debbie was cool, like, because we were in the dancing school and that was fine. But there's a scene in What's the Matter with Helen that my brother still scares me with.
What scene?
He'll call me and he'll just say this, Mrs. Helen Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Helen Hill. And I'll go, Roger, stop it.
Did you, I'm just wondering because, as a kid, you're hired for that job. Did you know what that movie was actually about? Or were you just like, oh, I'm just dancing in a dance school with Debbie Reynolds?
Were your parents supportive of this?
Maybe I kind of knew, but I can't remember if I really knew. Like, I'm sure they told me it's a horror movie and, but it kind of went in one ear and out the other because I was having a great time, learning Oh, You Nasty Man was with a very famous choreographer by the name of Tony Charmelaet. And, because I grew up in the studio, I did everything he asked me to do. Like I just completely played along. So I was having a ball doing that. Like that was a lot of fun. But there's one other thing that happened when we're doing that big military number where Shelley Winters is freaking out and screaming because she cuts her finger on the fan.
Yeah.
So we're all doing that little tap number. And they had a professional screamer in the wings with a megaphone, like literally with a megaphone. And they didn't tell us kids. So all of a sudden we're doing all those like shuffle, hop, shuffling. And if you see the movie, at one point I go, and look back to camera because they didn't tell us that there was going to be blood curdling screaming going on in the wings because they wanted our reactions.
That's so interesting, like that they do that to. I mean, I don't know if they do it, but to children, like I was like, acting is acting. I always feel like that's kind of a cruel joke.
Well, but I almost feel like sometimes with kids, maybe you need to get an authentic reaction like that, or it'll look too staged.
I still feel like kids can learn.
Well, it was kind of creepy, but they did get the reaction.
I mean, it is, again, people should watch this movie. The very end. Well, I won't spoil it, I guess, but like the ending shot of Debbie Reynolds, let's just say that it's like chilling. It'll stay with you. And Shelley Winters is really good as like a crazy, she's just losing it.
It should be the poster, but it also shouldn't be the poster because then it gives it away.
Yes. Oh, I think Shelley Winters is really creepy in it. Like she's just got that real weird, nervous, like crazy, scared. Oh, she was great in it. She was great. Yeah.
What? Yeah. So that is Robbi Morgan's first horror movie. But we are here today to talk to her about Friday the 13th. And so moving on to this movie, we read that your initial audition wasn't for this film, but the casting directors thought you'd be perfect as a camp counselor. So you were sent down the hall to audition for Sean Cunningham. So what do you remember about that initial audition? And do you actually remember what film you were supposed to be auditioning for?
The casting director was Julie Hughes and Barry Moss. And I don't remember what that initial audition was for.
Tim, 1980 films. What do you think?
I mean, I've heard of the casting directors, but I mean,
thinking what else came out.
I don't even remember if it was a movie or if it was a television show. I mean, I was in New York, I was auditioning all the time. It could have been like
The Love Boat.
No, it wasn't The Love Boat. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Julie Hughes' daughter is a casting director, and it'd be really, really fun to get in touch with. Well, she probably wouldn't know because she probably wasn't born yet. So,
and is it
probably
true,
wouldn't know.
Is it true that you were doing tumbles for Sean Cunningham during the audition?
Oh, yes, because I was an acrobat. I was an acrobat at the time. I mean,
what was his reaction?
Well, the thing was like, so I wasn't ready for that initial audition. And then when I went down the hall, I didn't have to like do anything yet. Like they didn't have a script or anything. And I'm not even sure who I met that day. I don't think I met anybody that day.
Oh.
And so when I did meet Sean, it was in the rehearsal hall of the Minskoff Theater.
Wow.
The Minskoff. And, they were seeing everybody for camp counselors. everybody. Like, so, everybody was auditioning for this thing. And the fact that it was in a big rehearsal studio, I was like, Sean, like there was not even anything really for me to read that day, for Annie. And so I think they had me read something else, and I can't remember whose part I read, but I said, Sean, watch this. I was like a hummingbird at the time. I had so much energy, and I was like, watch. And I started doing round off, flip flop, like in the studio, And
wow.
It was like fun and light and silly, and that was it.
I'm going to try to do that. Next time I audition, I'm going to do a cartwheel.
Wait, so at this time, did you even know it was a horror movie, or were you just like, oh, it's about camp counselors?
I don't think I knew yet.
That's so
I
funny.
don't even think I knew yet.
Was there a title? Or like Friday the 13th probably didn't mean the same thing it means today.
I can't remember if I knew if there was a title yet, because I'm sure how Friday the 13th got sold, right?
Yeah. It was going to be, they basically wanted to copy Halloween, but make it about camp counselors.
No, they made a poster. They made a poster with the Friday the 13th title, and like almost to see if it would sell.
Yeah.
And it did. It did. It got and it sold. And then they made it into a movie.
Right. Like Sean put it in the trades, and like it was like the scariest movie you've ever seen. And I think that's awesome. Like he's like, hey, I don't have a script or actors, but hey, I'm gonna sell it on the title alone.
Exactly. And that's how it happened. So, oh my goodness, I'm not sure I knew it was a horror movie. When first of all, I was auditioning a lot at that time. I like every day. I was just auditioning every day for this, for that, for commercials, for whatever, So to me, I had another audition,
Yeah.
And I even brought one of my brothers along, not my older brother, Gary, but my brother, Raj. I was like, hey, Raj, they're looking for camp counselors. You want to come with me? So it was kind of like that. Like the Minskoff rehearsal, there were loads of kids there auditioning,
And I'm just wondering, not having to do with Friday the 13th, but since your parents are acrobats, like you obviously you learned all of these moves, so you could do all of these like acrobatic moves that you learned. Wow.
Yes, because my mom and dad being in vaudeville, and then opening a dancing school, they were like, you got to learn everything. You learn everything. You never know what's going to get you a call back. And so that was kind of like the mentality that we grew up with, and everything that I learned, I've worked with, like I learned how to ride a unicycle. And then I did a Freedom Panty Shield commercial on my unicycle.
I want to see your resume and see what it says for skill set. Because mine's like so basic. It's like a country accent. Like it's so silly.
Well, we learned everything. At one point I auditioned for Marvin Hamlish. He was doing a Broadway show called Smile, and they were looking for beauty pageant, singers and dancers. But I knew how to play the flute. So I went in, I sang, I enjoy being a girl. I played my flute, and then I twirled my flute.
Oh,
wow! So you just had all of these skills. I mean,
she's a triple threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We heard you mention that after you were cast as Annie, Sean Cunningham kind of made the role bigger for you. So do you remember? Did you ever find out what Annie's original role entailed, or did you only receive the script after your part was kind of extended?
Yes, I did. I don't think Annie had a lot to do at all. And then I think they wrote it in for me. I think Sean, saw me as this innocent, innocent, like fun, and so he wrote it in. So
that's so cool. And then back then, was it discussed? I mean, were people talking about that your role was sort of like a Janet Leigh from Psycho part? Like back then, were they talking about it like that?
No, not to me. No. Like, it was all of Friday the 13th was really a surprise. It was a surprise because I was happy to get the job. I drove myself. I lived in New Jersey. I drove myself to Camp Nobi Bosco, to work. And it was fun. That day was fun. The next day was fun, and then I was back auditioning for other things, and it wasn't until the movie came out that my brother, who lives here in California, I got to tell you more about him too, because he was in Cujo.
Yes, I think we saw that.
He played the dog.
Well, but for some of the scenes, he wore the dog suit, right?
Doubled the dog. He doubled the dog so that the dog wouldn't get hurt. He was the stunt man in the dog suit.
How do you get that job?
I'll tell you. I'll fill you in and tell you. But before I tell you that, he called me. I was in New Jersey, and he called me and said, Robbie, he says, do you have any idea the business that Friday the 13th is doing? And I said, no. He goes, it's huge. It's like, it's a gigantic hit. So I was like, great. Like, how fun, And then when it was really kind of out, I'd be driving on Route 3 going from New Jersey to New York, and it was playing at the drive-in. It was playing at my hometown right on Route 3.
Wow.
It was the drive-in. It was like, oh my God, there it is, So I was like, I have arrived.
No, but that's so cool, because I know in your life at that point, this was just a job you had for a couple days, and then it turns into such a big film. But what I was wondering, did you know if your scenes were filmed before all of the main cast scenes or after? Like, what was the vibe like at that time?
In order?
And if you don't know, it's totally fine. Yeah.
I think that they set up, a shoot schedule, and my 2 days were just my 2 days. I don't know, but they must have had a few weeks, right? They must have shot the movie in 3 weeks or however many days they did it in. And I was just the 2 days. I didn't work with anybody else on any of the other counselors, or it was just me when I showed up and Rex Everhart.
Yeah.
And what was it like working with Sean S. Cunningham?
What's he like as a director? Because I know that was very early in his career.
He was great. It was like we were all just sort of playing at it. I don't know if Sean would appreciate that, but we were that first scene before I get picked up by the Jeep, we were just we found a little area of a road, and we kind of walked up that road. He goes, okay, this is where we're going to do this, and I just want you to walk down the hill. We're just going to walk down the hill. We were doing it all in the moment. Everything was just moment by moment, before I got picked up by the Jeep, we shot that just walking down the hill. And, when I was running through the woods, Sean, the camera, they were just running behind me, and Sean was telling me what to do. It was all improv. Okay, Robbie, trip, fall.
You're like, again.
I would love to hear that footage without the music and everything, and just hear Sean being like, okay,
trip,
Robbie.
fall.
Okay, Robbie.
Wait. And I speaking of improv, if you remember, when you see the dog and you say, hey girl, excuse me, boy, was that improv?
I can't remember if it was in the script.
Because I'm thinking it's gotta be, because I can't imagine a scriptwriter being, okay, she sees a dog, thinks it's a girl, then it's actually a boy.
It must have been an improv, because I think the dog was an improv. The dog was there, And so I think it was Sean saying, okay, Robbie, go and pet the dog. And, it was like that. Yeah, it must have been an improv. And he might have fed me that line, He might have told me to say that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, it seems like it's that kind of vibe that, like you were saying, kind of just go with the flow thing. But sorry, go on.
Running in the woods was definitely improv, because, like I said, he was running behind me and telling me to trip, to fall, look back, look at me. Everything that you see, I was being told what to do in the moment there. So it was so much fun.
It looked like, I mean, I always tell Matt because it's Friday 13th is my favorite series ever. I saw it when I was 9 and I grew up with it. Like Matt loves Halloween, but I love Friday 13th, but of course we both like it.
Yeah, we both love it.
It's like, it was so much fun to make. It's so much fun to watch. It is just a fun movie. And like, compared to like, I mean, I know you don't follow horror films today, but like Terrifier 3, and then there's something so innocent as Friday 13th, but at the time it was so not innocent.
Yeah, but just the simplicity of Friday the 13th, you know, a bunch of unsuspecting camp counselors being hunted by a killer. You don't know who it is. And then she's got this past. And it's just, you know, I think what's missing from a lot of horror movies today is the simplicity of it. Just a simple plot, you know?
Yeah, it will never not be scary. Someone in the woods alone with someone chasing them with a knife.
Well, well, I think that, with technology and, all of the way movies are made these days, it's like, Friday the 13th, we did my getting killed once.
One time, the throat slit?
One time, because for a couple of reasons, because they were losing the light, it was getting dark. And also because the blood that they were using was sticky and stained your skin, right? So they got me all, made up, and we had made a mold of my neck. I don't know if you want me to go into this.
Please tell us.
Oh, okay. So the first time, before we showed up to work, I met Tom Savini and Tasso in Connecticut, where they were going to make a mold of my neck. And they did that, and they made where they were going to cut my neck in the mold, So I met them first. And then right before we did that shot, they got me all set. The tube kind of ran down my shirt underneath. And Tom was just right off camera working the blood, like timing. It was like a little thing, those that thing that you squeeze that would go like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that was attached to a little tube that was up my sleeve and underneath that piece. So we did it. Like, we rehearsed a couple of times with the knife the other way, like for photos and stuff like that. And then we did it.
Was it a fake knife that was touching your neck?
That was a real knife.
It was a real knife touching your neck.
Touching the mold.
Well, I mean, the mold is touching her neck. So in a way, the knife is touching her neck.
If A equals B and B equals C.
It really didn't touch my neck, you guys. It really didn't touch. But, so the rehearsal, he would turn the knife around so that we could, like, rehearse, And then we did it once. And then they got it. And I jumped on the back of Tom Savini's scooter because I needed to get right into a shower to get that blood off, because it was like it would stain my skin if we did it.
Wow. Wait, I've got to ask. So at that time, were Sean and everyone did you know who the killer was? Like, did you know that the killer was Mrs. Voorhees, or were they just referring to it like there's a killer after you?
I think I might have known it was Betsy Palmer, but she certainly wasn't there. Who
was driving the Jeep?
Tasso.
Oh, okay.
Tasso.
Wow.
I mean, and it was like that. It was always like, it was so in the moment, and everybody was sort of kind of flying by the seat of their pants, I think, that, it was like, okay, Tasso, go get the Jeep. Tasso, you're going to pick Robbie up in the Jeep, and for that scene where I poked my head in, that first scene.
Yeah.
When at Camp Crystal Lake, that was Tasso. And then when it was, time to do the kill, it was like, Tasso, get the knife.
Oh my God. That's just so funny because, like, we all are imagining it, having seen it, when the first time you see, you don't know who it is, as Betsy Palmer, Mrs. Voorhees. Of course, she's not even there with you guys. That's so funny.
No, she's not even there. They didn't discuss the hair on his arm.
Yes, that is always such the discussion. Like, Mrs. Voorhees' hands have a hairy finger.
And then your scenes with Rex Everhart. Is it true you guys weren't even in the truck together?
We were in the truck for a little bit. But when I was talking to him, no, he wasn't.
Why? I guess I'm just wondering, could the camera not fit in there or something?
I don't know. I guess, it was kind of like a weird thing because somebody else was driving and the camera was kind of like right here, you know? It was weird. So like when I would turn around and look as if I was looking at him, I was kind of looking like the camera was like right there. I don't know why they did that.
That would mess with my mind so much because you're talking to someone, but they're not there, and have to react to. I assume the person who was in the driver's seat would at least feed you the lines to react to. I guess
somebody was.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Sean who, maybe it was Sean feeding me the lines, or like when I'm in the truck and I'm saying, "You're an American original."
I love it so much.
So
I love
good.
All those lines. I don't think Rex was in the truck for that. I don't think so.
And Annie also has a run-in with Ralph, played by Walt Gormy. What was he? Did I pronounce that right? Gormy?
Gorny.
Yeah, Gorny.
What was he like to work with?
He was so sweet and he was so quiet. Like you would never even know he was there. I didn't even know he was there. Like very quiet, and we would block it. And we just be all normal, kind of walking where we would go and everything. And when he turned into Crazy Ralph,
it's got a death curse.
So creepy. Scared the shit out of me. That first initial meeting, when I'm walking kind of up the hill and he stops me, he became this like really creepy dude, this really wonderful actor who was really, really creepy, and then he got on that bike, and even his posture on the bike was weird, the way he drove away,
Yeah.
So he was just this very sweet guy, very like, did I even have a conversation with him? Probably not.
That's so funny, especially because you see him as this character, but obviously that's just for, a few minutes of one day. That's nothing like obviously what the actor is like, but he turned it on really well, did very well in that role.
Yes.
And then, of course, this is a big cool thing. If listeners don't notice, we read that you did your own stunt jumping out of the Jeep. So we have to ask you, what was that like? Did you have to do it multiple times? Were you afraid you were going to get hurt?
Well filmed. I mean, like as we know, it was obviously slowed down the Jeep because you weren't going full speed, but it's so filmed so right. And your tumble is amazing.
Yeah. So tell us, how did they do that? And did you have to do it more than once?
I did. So, again, just like at the Minskoff rehearsal hall, when I was like, watch this, Sean, tumbling, and, I was game. Like I was game to do everything, And so when they were talking about it, me needing to jump out of the Jeep and they were trying to figure out what to do, I was like, I could do that. I could jump out of the Jeep. They were like, you sure? I was like, oh God, yeah. Like that was no big deal at all. So what they did is they dug up the dirt and they kind of padded it. They put a big couple of like pads underneath the dirt. And so I knew exactly where I was going to jump out and roll, but it was so fun. It was so fun. I did have to do it a couple of times, I think. I can't even remember, but probably a couple of times. But it was so fun because I was having a ball. I was having a ball. It was just fun, pure fun.
Well, I'm sure that after seeing your audition, Sean was like, well, let's have her do a round off.
It almost looks like, I mean, obviously I've seen this film many times. Like it almost looks like you could possibly break your neck because it's not like you land like on your knees. It's like you land on your head.
I really did. I really did good.
It's like a somersault.
But it is good. And like when you're watching it, you don't notice that the Jeep is slowed down. It just looks like you jump out and tumble.
You know what? Yes, they did it great because it did slow down. It did slow down a little bit, but I was very, we rehearsed it. So I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to jump and then do that roll. And then I had to make believe like my leg was hurt.
It was totally believable.
Oh, thanks, Tim.
No, it was great. I mean, in one thing we read in Peter Brackey's book, Crystal Lake Memories, so Tasso Stavrakis, who you mentioned was Tom Savini's assistant, said that you, Tom, and him had T-shirts made that said Mini Maniac for you, Minor Maniac for him, and Major Maniac for Tom. So what inspired the three of you to have these shirts made, and do you still have yours today?
Well, what inspired, when I first met Tom and Tasso, it was like the three of us were having so much fun. And, I would call it wasn't Major Maniac, it was Main Maniac.
Oh God.
Tom was the main maniac. And then Tasso was the minor maniac. And, at the time, I think my older brother Gary would use those phrases like, oh God, you're such a maniac, or, and so when I met them, I was like, oh man, you're the main maniac, and so I made the t-shirts first. I made one for Tom, main maniac, and I made one for Tasso. And the cute thing is that we had a reunion at the camp many years ago now. But I hadn't seen those guys in a really, really long time, and they showed up with a mini maniac for me.
Oh, that's awesome!
And I still have it. Yeah, I have.
Oh, I love that.
Did you get to keep anything from the set or from your time filming,
or like your costume with the flannel,
blood soaked?
You know what? No, I don't have anything. So that's why I wear, like, whenever I go to a convention and I do signings, I've got this flannel that looks like the one that I wore.
Oh, that's awesome.
Got it at where did I get it? Oh, I don't know, Urban Outfitters.
Kohl's.
It looks so much like the one that I wore in the movie.
I love that plaid. I'm a plaid person.
You can tell people it was from the movie. They'll never know the difference.
Yes, a lot of people, when they meet me, they go, is that the same shirt? So that's fun.
So after your death, you do appear one more time in the film during the final showdown between Alice, Adrian King, and Mrs. Voorhees. Mm-hmm. She runs to the Jeep and she finds your dead body covered in blood in the Jeep. So when did you film that scene? Well,
so after the days that I shot, they had me come back to do that. And I really wanted to go back. I really wanted to go back to the set because it was a lot of fun there, And so they were doing the night shoot with Alice. And so I went back. I drove myself back and they got me all made up with the blood and everything. And all I did was I just sat in that Jeep looking dead.
Did you get to actually finally meet like Adrian King or anyone else from the cast at that point?
No, I really didn't because, first of all, they were shooting, and I think that night that they were shooting, like she's doing some blood curdling screams.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember exactly what the scene is. I'd have to go back and look, but I remember being there. They brought me in and then they got me all made up and then they're still working with her. They shoot me dead in the Jeep and then I had to go and get it all off. And I remember kind of hanging out and standing around, but I didn't really get to hang out and meet her and talk with her because she was working.
Yeah. Did you get to check out the camp at that point at least?
A little bit, because the Jeep was kind of, if I can remember, it wasn't far from the lake.
So you never got to spend the night at the camp?
I did not.
Oh,
although that night I probably did, but not at the camp. I don't even remember where I stayed that night,
And we heard that you got to meet Betsy Palmer many years later at a convention. What was that like and what did you talk about?
You know what? This is, it's such a small world because Betsy Palmer was a theater actress. She was a very, very big theater actress. I don't know if you guys knew that, but.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so my brother Gary had done a production of Peter Pan when he was 16 years old. And Betsy Palmer played Peter.
She played
what?
I'm dying to see that.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
No, it was on stage, so you really can't see it. But Betsy played Peter. Sandy Duncan played Wendy, and my brother Gary was one of the Lost Boys. And so when I finally did get to meet Betsy Palmer, I had so much to talk to her about, because she had worked with my brother all those years ago, and she was so sweet.
And she's a boy who can fly.
Yeah.
Did you tell her you killed me before anybody else?
Yes, I did. I said, it's so nice to meet you. And thank you for killing me.
Oh, my God. So after the film wrapped, was there any type of cast and crew screening or when was the first time you actually saw it? And what was your first reaction?
Yes. like I always tell people that when I was shooting the movie, it was so much fun because it wasn't scary at all because we were working and we were hanging out and, Tom and Tasso and I would walk on our hands down like the dirt road together, like to where I was going to get killed,
The maniacs, you mean?
Yes, the maniacs.
You
we
guys
were
are
having a good
maniacs.
time. So when they did do the first screening, and I went, when I saw it, I heard the music for the first time. That was when that's when I got nightmares. It was so scary. It was so scary and oh my gosh. And while I'm running in the woods, it was terrifying.
I love the score. I mean, this is going to sound like I'm a crazy person, but I love all the scores to all the Friday 13th. I think it's like the best score ever.
Tim likes to listen to it before he goes to sleep. When he
relaxes me.
You know what, Tim? I understand that because there are a few movies that bring me great comfort, and they're kind of weird. They're weird movies, like Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, that's
right?
A great score.
I always love it. Just kind of, like if I'm making dinner or something, I like it in the background. It's just comfort. And it's a terribly scary movie.
Totally. And there's a very, when she's in the canoe, the music is so.
Oh, yeah.
pretty.
It's so calming. And that's what it gets people so scared at that jump scare because you're calm thinking everything's over.
Yeah.
What is your favorite scene other than your death scene in the movie? Like, do you have a death scene favorite or like just a scene in general that you're like, oh, I like this scene?
That I think is really scary.
Yeah.
Well, like that made me really, really scared, I think was Kevin Bacon's kill. Because he is laying in that bed. And when that hand comes over and grabs his head and the thing comes through his neck. I mean, holy shit, that's like really scary.
And it looks, I've never seen a real throat slit, but it looked real.
And it's also the kind of thing that really inspires nightmares because everyone, when they're laying in bed, you think that's your most relaxing state. So to get killed then is nightmare fuel.
And this is
for sure.
This is none of my business at all. But since you are in Friday 13th Part 2 for like a half second, do you get a residual check for that?
Am I in Part 2?
They show her finding you in the Jeep because she's having dreams of what happened. So they show you for just a second.
Oh, okay. Probably not. I barely get...
You should go to court and get all of your residual checks.
I barely get a residual check for Friday the 13th.
Oh, my God. You know what? And it's totally okay if your answer is no to this because we've talked to a lot of people whose answer is no to this. But did you end up seeing any of the sequels to Friday the 13th?
Nope.
That is so interesting. So when Part 2 came out in 1981, you weren't curious to see what...
Like, what are they going to do with this?
Like, Mrs. Voorhees is dead. Like, you're like, I got to see.
What year did it come out again?
Like 81. a year later. Yeah.
So like, what are you, 81?
81, yeah.
81? So... Nope, I didn't. I wasn't curious because I was already doing a Broadway show. I had kind of moved on, I auditioned for a Broadway show and I got it. It was the show Barnum with Glenn Close and Jim Dale.
Ooh.
And I had moved on and I really don't go see horror movies because they scare me.
Yeah.
So,
no, that makes sense.
We talk to a lot of people and they're not, not everyone loves to be scared.
But here's a fun fact. In Part 4, the final chapter, the nurse who gets killed at the beginning, her name tag says R. Morgan. Now, did anyone tell you about that while it was filmed?
No, they didn't. And I love that they did that. That's so cool.
Wait, how did you find out?
I think somebody told me.
So you mean the filmmakers just were like, hey, we're going to use her name, not even tell her?
Yeah, I think so.
That's a nice homage.
Yeah. I don't know whose idea it was, but it was fun.
I love that they used that. It's just so funny that they didn't even say, oh, let's let Robbi Morgan know. No, we'll just use her name.
Well, since you moved on to Barnum, was there ever a time like pre-internet where Friday 13th did it ever go away for you where like in your day-to-day, obviously there's now the internet and there's conventions and stuff like that, but was there ever a time period where Friday 13th wasn't even on your radar?
Yeah, yes. So it was, when it first came out, it was a big hit, and then they were doing all the sequels and everything. And there was kind of like a time where it wasn't, like it is now. Like there are, Friday fans are like, there's so many Friday fans, but there was a time where it was sort of not really a big deal, and then it became a big deal, I guess, when like conventions started happening and conventions started long before I was doing them too. Like one time they were doing a convention here and somebody told me about it. And so I just kind of went down. I heard Tom Savini was going to be there. So I just went to say hi, and they were like, Robbie, why aren't you doing these with us? Come, it's like really fun. And so then I started finding out about it and started doing them. And that's when it seemed to be big again,
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? That's kind of
No,
weird.
I mean, we hear that a lot from people that it disappeared for a while. And then when the convention circuit started out and they realized, like a lot of people we talked to, especially from Friday the 13th, were even shocked when they went to their first convention that people were showing up for them. And we're like, are you kidding? This is huge, And now, of course, they know.
Yes. That first convention that I did, I couldn't believe it. It was like, I couldn't believe it, how many people wanted to come and meet me. And, it was shocking. It was wonderful, actually, One thing was when I was doing Barnum, Friday the 13th opened right across the street at the Lowe's, right underneath where I had auditioned, because the Minskoff, the Lowe's movie theater was right underneath. And so a whole group of us from Barnum on 44th Street went across and saw it all together. And that was a lot of fun.
Oh my God. I
love that theater. Because I lived in New York for such a short time, but it's a huge theater.
Oh, huge theater. And so, the rehearsal rooms upstairs were huge, like big, long rehearsal studios,
How cool was it to take all your like co-stars from the musical and like to this horror movie that you were in? That must have been so much fun.
It was so much fun. Yeah, it was great.
I love that. And so you said, because we're going to ask you, have you been back to the filming locations? But it sounds like you did do one of those, because we've heard about these. It's kind of like Return to Crystal Lake reunions. So you've gone to one of those?
Yes, I've gone to a few of them.
Oh, cool. I know we
need to go.
We so want to go. Wait, what was it like going back there? Was it weird? Was it exciting?
The first time back, it's like, oh my God, it was like the Twilight Zone. It was a bit, but it's a camp. It's a working Boy Scout camp. It's Camp Nobi Bosco. So the smell in the air is the same, it's that. So it brought me right back. And then when I saw everybody like Tom, that first time was so much fun. It was fun. Some of the fans wanted to know what tree I died on, like leaning up against. And I'm like,
that one.
That is so funny. I mean, we know that we of course are asking very detailed questions, but we also understand like it was a long time ago. Like, obviously nobody remembers everything, but like, I can't even imagine what fans at conventions ask. Like, what were you thinking in that 1 second that you turned and did that?
Well, what's funny is they have stories that they bring to me, that they've created, and I'm like, wow, I never thought of that, because, the fans, they're watching and watching and watching. And I'm like, oh, I bet when you were walking down that street, you must have been, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's so simple, but like, obviously, I mean, I've seen the film so many times, so you overanalyze these films over and over and over.
Oh, that's why they have fan fiction. I mean, I bet people have created an entire backstory for Annie, like her childhood, how she grew up. I mean, what she's in, what kind of dog she likes.
What her favorite dish is for the kids at Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, exactly.
Goats or kids.
Or don't call them kids, because then it make me think of goats.
Little goats. I've often thought that I should write a little cookbook.
You should.
Annie's cookbook.
I would buy it.
Let me just tell you, Robbie, you would make a fortune, because Friday the 13th fans like us who love horror memorabilia, just call it Annie's Cookbook. Put in some fun camp recipes. You are golden. That would be great.
I should do it.
Totally.
I think that'd be great.
And have your children or husband seen the film, and what are their thoughts?
Well, my kids, it made me a really cool mom.
Of
you
course.
Know, when they could pull that out of their back pocket, when their friends saw Friday the 13th, like it's mind blowing that it's me, So that was fun. And my husband, it's so campy now when you see Friday the 13th part 1, it's a little bit corny.
It's very innocent. Yeah.
Very innocent. And so, but it's fun. What can I say?
So, we wanted to ask you, why, in your opinion, do you think people are still so obsessed with the original Friday the 13th and the entire Friday the 13th series in particular, even over 4 decades later?
Well, I was going to say, Tim, being 9 years old was too young to see Friday the 13th.
Yeah, Tim.
Well, truth be told, I begged my mom to get the VHS from the library. So I was me. I was a pusher.
Weren't you scared to death? Like my great nephew is 10. And I asked my niece, Molly, I was like, does he know about the movie yet? And she's like, no, Aunt Robin, no, but when I do those conventions, a lot of kids, like their parents are introducing the movie to them and they're really young, I really don't know what it is that people.
I think this is my little take on it. I think it's because I was the youngest. I had 2 older brothers, and I thought if I got to see Friday the 13th, I'd be part of the older cool crowd who got to see this forbidden film.
Sure.
But, yeah, this is the scariest film you've ever seen. I was like, I gotta see it.
Yes, I understand. I understand that, and a lot of people that come to the conventions tell me the same story a little bit over and over, that it was my older brother that snuck me in before I was old enough to go, like that's a very common thing. But I guess it's sort of like, I really don't know. I can only relate it to the movies that do that for me. Like there are those movies that I watch over and over and over again. They're different. They're not horror, but they bring some sort of comfort.
Nostalgia,
music, maybe, being a teenager, and being a camp counselor and like that whole thing. I think it just, because a lot of the guys that come and meet me at conventions, we were all young then, and so they had crushes on me, but now we're all older. So I think it, just makes people feel, young, and they can relate to that time of their life.
Yeah.
This is the nerdiest thing I'll say all day, but I used to go to choir camp. And so when it was
right there, that is the nerdiest thing.
I love that though. I love that because I sing.
Oh, well, I was a bad tenor, but when I used to go to choir camp, the only thing on my mind was Friday 13th, because it was like camp. Like we were in cabins, like it was nothing glossy about this camp. And I went for like 3 summers and I loved it because I was like, oh, it's just like Friday 13th.
He's like Mrs. Voorhees is coming after me.
Be Mrs. Voorhees.
Well, one of the times, I didn't tell this to you guys, but one of the first times that I went to the camp,
mm-hmm.
Well, actually the first time they put us up in some of the not the cabins, but like they have these like bunks, like I guess where I don't know who stays in those. Maybe the counselors that really work at the Boy Scout camp. Anyway, growing up, I had never been to camp. And so they put us in, first of all, I couldn't sleep a wink. Like I couldn't sleep. The bathroom, you had to go outside and go like to the, like over there, right? So I was too scared to do that, and I couldn't sleep. And I mean, it was terrible. I was up all night. I could not sleep.
So you were miserable.
Yeah, I will say I've been to some summer camps, and that is the worst part of it, that you have to walk out of your cabin to go to the bathroom. That is terrifying as a kid.
I do remember being like, asking my buddies, I was like, can you go with me? I don't want to go by myself. Like,
we're singing in choir camp tomorrow. I need to be.
Well. But you guys, I called my husband and I'm like, babe, I'm really struggling. I can't sleep. Like, He's like, Robbie, you're okay. You're fine. He says, you sound like a 9-year-old kid going to camp for the first time that's homesick.
That is hilarious.
And I was. And so the next time I went back, I'm sorry, guys, but I'm going to have to stay in a hotel. Like I need a television.
I get it. You can watch reruns of Friends.
But the hotel was kind of creepy too that I stayed in. So I'm not sure what was creepier, the hotel or that bunk.
That is hilarious. You mentioned that you've done a lot of you've done some horror convention. What is the number one question you get asked by fans?
The number one question. Ooh, I don't know. Like I said, everybody tells me they got snuck in by their brother, their older brother before they were old enough. They want to know, oh gosh, I can't really think of a good one question that I always get asked over and over. Everybody's always so tickled to see me, like they can't believe it's me.
That's so funny.
But it's Annie.
Yeah. No, of course. I'm sure there's I'm sure there's all sorts of questions.
And we heard that you were at a dog park one day and you saw Kevin Bacon. What was it like to reunite with him?
You know what, you guys, I don't know where you knew that from, but that's true. I was at the Laurel Canyon Dog Park, and there's Kevin Bacon. Now you got to remember, I didn't meet him when we were doing the movie.
Yeah.
So I just sort of went and introduced myself, and said, we're in a movie together, just like that. It was pretty casual. I just kind of went, I'm Robbie, and we're in Friday the 13th together, and he was great.
What did he say?
Did he erased his Friday 13th roots?
It was very friendly, and but not much more than that.
Did he laugh? Did he say anything about Friday the 13th? Or
he really didn't. He might have giggled at it, like, oh wow, like nice to meet you, great, But I wish I had more to tell you about that, but I don't.
I love that you went up and said something. I think that's great that you did.
Oh, yeah, I had to. Absolutely.
Of course.
He went on to be such a big movie star.
Footloose.
Oh, Footloose. And one of the movies that I love to watch over and over again, because my son is a Navy pilot, or he was a Navy pilot. He's out of the Navy now, but growing up, Apollo 13.
Oh yeah.
Two Good Men.
It
was a big movie in my house. So that's another one that's on a loop with Kevin Bacon, and yeah.
So we also heard you mention that you did some stunt work in the movie The Great Outdoors, and even wore the bear head during a scene. How did that job come about, and what was that experience like?
My brother Gary again. He's so, when this is the way growing up, like we all got each other work, like if somebody was doing something, he would say, hey, Rob, there's something in it for you, or, come with me and meet the casting director. So we all did that. So I was here in California, and he was in the bear suit for The Great Outdoors. And he says, Robbie, I can't work that day. Do you want a day on the movie? You have to be in the bear suit. But I was like, sure. So the night before I had to go do it, he brought the bear suit over, right? I said, I got to try it on, because just to make sure. So I put the whole thing on. I had like the hands or the claws, and they Velcroed me in, and then they put the head on, and I freaked out. I was like, get me out of the suit, because you can't get yourself out. You can't undo yourself.
Oh God. Yeah. Oh, I couldn't do it either.
I flipped. So I still had to show up the next day though. And I was so worried. that I was going to have to put that suit on, and I just got lucky. And the scene that I had to do, it was with Dan Aykroyd, and I just had to put the head on. So it's a really big bear head, So I had it on. I kind of was holding it, and it was kind of funny because the director he kept asking Dan, "Are you okay, Dan? Like, is this? Are you okay?" And I wanted to take off the head and go, "Is he okay?" Is
Wait,
he okay? I'm the one with a bear head.
I'm so confused because I assume you and your brother are different sizes, but you guys could be in the same bear suit and look interchangeable?
Yes, because well, my brother is very he's a little bit taller than me, but he's very slight,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm short. But yeah, it fit. The bear suit fit. It's just like this big bear suit. I think my brother owns the bear suit.
Oh, God. Does he have the Cujo suit?
No,
Oh,
he doesn't have the Cujo suit, but he was also in a kangaroo suit. He was in the movie Matilda.
yes.
Yes, that's my brother in that kangaroo suit, and that was a real scary suit to be in because the face is very very small. So they had to give him oxygen and stuff in the suit. But I can't do those claustrophobic things.
I don't blame you.
No,
I don't think
we did one of our friends' covers, and we had to put on costumes, and I was in it for maybe 5 minutes. I was sweating.
Yeah.
I was miserable. So I really sympathize with your day.
I can't even wear masks at Halloween. Like I have to do makeup or something. It's too constrictive. Like,
Yes. Yeah, me too. But now, I don't know if you're about to ask me this, but this is a whole family affair. My niece, Bonnie Morgan, is in The Ring 3. And
who does she play?
Samara.
Oh my
wow.
God. Oh my, wow.
And she also doubles Samara in the first Ring when Samara is climbing out of the well because my niece is a contortionist.
Oh.
And so that creepy scene I haven't seen it because it freaks me out.
Oh, it's terrifying.
There's a scene where she climbs out of the well, and that's my niece all contorted.
Wow. It is a family of people in horror films, but the original.
And acrobats but
contortionists. Yep, that's us.
That is wow. I love that connection. We also saw on your IMDb in 2017, you appeared in a horror short called The Sub, and the opening sequence just happens to feature a quick cameo by A Nightmare on Elm Street final girl Heather Langenkamp. So how did you get involved with this project, and did you get to meet Heather at all?
You know what? I didn't realize that Heather. What movie was Heather in?
She was in the original A Nightmare on Elm Street and a couple of the sequels.
I really didn't know that. And the way that came about, this is really funny. I was in Boston visiting my cousin, and my cousin, Harriet, was saying to me, "Oh, Robbie, our dear friend Dan, who grew up, like, I guess Harriet was friends with his mom. Like, they grew that, like, Harriet's kids went to school with Dan and everybody. So they were like family friends. He's in California and he's doing so well and he's doing this and he's doing that. And I think I read that he's doing like a little movie called The Sub. I went, Harriet, call Dan and tell him I want to be in it. And that's how it came about.
That's so funny because you're one of the teachers we saw it on YouTube. But yeah, Heather Langenkamp is like the opening scene, like the first minute.
Oh, okay. I'll have to take a peek. I didn't even
and
know.
If you're at a convention, you can go up and talk to her like, hey.
Yes, I could. Yes, I could. But Dan Semillian is his name, and we should keep an eye on Dan because he's always doing some cool thing. And I guess he directed it. I guess Dan directed that, but he was so sweet. I was like, tell Dan I want to be in the movie. And so he just let me do, it was kind of like being an extra. I don't do very much in the movie.
But that's so cool. Like, and I think it's great.
Yeah.
But you're a name to have in there, just like Heather. I think that's so cool. And, speaking in the conventions, because you didn't get to meet other Friday the 13th cast members while you were filming, have you now gotten to meet people like Adrian King or other people in the movie? Oh,
yes. And when we go back to, certainly at different conventions, but when we went back to the camp, I hadn't seen Janine Taylor like since I never met her at the time. So that was the first time I was really meeting her, Wow. So that was really a trip to meet her for the first time. And Adrian, I've met, I met at a convention and, I've seen her over the years, but And
Was she the
other
one
girl,
that opened the door and like saw you dead and then slammed the door?
Yeah.
But
Adrian?
you got to meet her for like 1 second.
In the movie, she's the one who finds your dead body, but she's screaming the whole
Was
time.
it filmed?
no.
Oh, was it her?
Wait. Adrian?
Yeah.
In part 1?
Right.
Yeah.
Does she meet me where am I dead?
She when she's having the showdown with Betsy Palmer, she's trying to escape. She runs to the Jeep, opens the door, and sees your dead body.
Or was it just the camera?
Yeah, no, we didn't do that. Yeah, I don't even remember doing that.
Oh, well, yeah, they probably just shot your part and shot her part separately. Yeah.
Totally,
interesting.
Totally.
That's so funny how you never think about that. But just like we were talking about with the truck scenes, you could be talking to someone in a movie and they're not even there.
Well, and now with AI happening, it's getting really freaky.
That's scary, yeah.
It's getting really crazy. It's actually, we just had an experience with it with my husband because my husband, Mark L. Wahlberg,
yes,
is the host of Temptation Island.
Yes,
we're familiar with that show.
So that's going to be he just shot another season for Netflix.
Oh, great!
And so that's going to be coming out, God willing, in the spring or summer. But we just had an experience with AI because he had to go in and do some voiceover stuff, and AI is definitely in the picture. Like they barely need him. Like they could use AI instead of him. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can get a one shot of someone and just keep you and then turn it into a whole performance.
Yes, it's weird. It's weird. I just saw the new Tom Hanks movie, and in the beginning of the movie, it's Tom Hanks very young. And I said to Mark, my God, the makeup is amazing. Like, oh my God, what do you think? And he goes, AI.
Yeah. I mean, it's creepy. It's creepy. It is cool in the way that we can bring back
storytell, but it's also takes the experience of auditioning and acting away.
Well, what I was going to say is that it can bring back people that have since passed, and we can put them in movies, but at the same time, that's not real. So it doesn't feel correct.
I think we don't even know the half of it.
Yeah.
I really think that we need to buckle up. with who knows what's going to be with that,
And how often does your husband get mistaken for Marky Mark Wahlberg?
My poor guy, because my Mark was Mark Wahlberg before Marky Mark was Mark Wahlberg.
That's so funny.
And so, pretty much everywhere he goes, every restaurant, every hotel, everywhere we go. But he's my guy. He's great about it. He says it before they can.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Have they ever met? Has he ever met the other Mark Wahlberg?
Did you believe that he's never met Mark Wahlberg? And what's crazy is he's met his brother.
Donnie?
He's met Donnie.
With Jenny?
No, hasn't met Jenny. Because also Mark used to work on Antiques Roadshow.
Oh.
And so one time he was at Antiques Roadshow, and I think it was Donnie that came up to him and introduced himself and kind of was fooling around with Mark about that. But one day they'll meet.
Yeah,
I think it's in the future.
Yeah.
So what are you up to today? Would you ever want to do a horror film again?
Oh, you betcha. You betcha I would. But what I'm up to today is, besides the fact that I still dance.
Oh.
I teach a tap class here in Hollywood.
Just like Debbie Reynolds in What's Matter with Helen.
Yes. And I've got such a fun group of people that come, and take my class. Actors, and, one of the girls is in Barbie, and she's a big character actress. And, some women, I've got a director, I've got writers, and they all want to tap dance.
Matt does too.
Well, I'm your girl. If you ever want to learn, I'm your girl.
I will say this, Robbie, I can tell just from the hour we've spent with you that your class must be so much fun. I can just see you're such a bright light of like positivity and energy, and I can just imagine how incredible your class must be.
Well, thank you. And it is. It's so much fun. It is. We have a ball. I use really fun music and it's fun. But the other thing that's going on with me is I've written a script. Now, I know this sounds so corny, but it's a script for a one-woman show. And I'm sure you've heard that from a lot of people. But
no, I mean, I know. Yeah, I think that's great.
I'm pretty excited about it, and I sing in it, and it's my story. And so I have the script, and now I just have to get it up on its feet, but I'm close.
Matt and I will come see it.
Do you mention Friday the 13th in it?
Oh, absolutely. And
We're there.
The real kind of funny thing about that is when I was a kid, I was doing an off-Broadway show when I was a kid, like from the time I was 6.5 until I was almost 11. And when I was 11, I auditioned for Annie.
Oh.
And I didn't get it. And I was kind of like already like a show business veteran. Like at 11, you know what I mean? I had been playing Shirley Temple for a long time. I had done Mae West. I had done I'd been working, you know? So when I went to Annie, I was like, oh man,
I got this.
Piece of cake.
Yeah.
Cake. And they wanted us to do like an improv as a kid, throwing a tantrum. And between you and me, I was like, kid, throwing a tantrum? Really? Like, I was kind of jaded. I was a bit jaded. And then I didn't get it. And I was devastated. Like
I can only imagine, because if you played like a Mae West character, this should be like a no problem thing.
Oh, so I was devastated. And then they sent me back to school to like the 5th grade. And really, I didn't want to play tag on the playground. I needed a job, a cup of coffee, and a cigarette.
Right. You need to be hanging with Shelley Winters.
I'm doing music. I'm doing shows, wearing blonde wigs. Yeah.
But what a great thing that my name is Annie in Friday the 13th.
I was just going to say, like, how prophetic. Like, I mean, then you end up getting the role of Annie in Friday the 13th.
I get to be Annie forever.
That's true. And we're still talking about Friday the 13th. How many people are still
talking about Annie?
That musical.
Don't even remember it. No. So, well, first, Robbie, we have one final question for you, and you've been amazing. And this is, if you don't have something for it, it's totally fine, but it's kind of we ask this to everyone we interview. What is just one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on Friday the 13th that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, convention, Q&A, podcaster, even if it's just a tiny detail, like one thing, if you can remember about your experience that you've never told in any other interview?
Well, let me think about that for a sec. Well, when I was going back to do that night shoot, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted to bring something to Tom and Tasso. Like I wanted to bring, like I didn't know what to do. I was so young. I was 17, for God's sakes, right? So I brought them cupcakes.
That's cute.
That's so nice.
I brought them cupcakes.
What flavor cupcakes? Very important.
That's so innocent.
Yeah. It was so innocent. Oh my God. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that out loud as something that I, don't talk about very much. But I brought them cupcakes. I don't know. I think it was like a mix of chocolate and some vanilla. And what was I going to bring them,
Weed.
What was I going to bring them?
Just kidding.
I could have, because I was already smoking weed at the time.
Well, they did. They played Strip Monopoly, right?
Wait, yeah, and I love it. Did you? So you didn't bring a cupcake for Sean Cunningham, just Tasso and Tom,
right?
And for Betsy.
Well, because that's who I was really hanging out with. Really, I was hanging out with Tom and Tasso,
the Maniacs.
Yeah, the Maniacs, and I'm trying to think if there was anything else. No, that's about it. That's about it.
Hey, that qualifies. No, we love asking that because sometimes it's little details, sometimes it's big things, but no, that's great. But I mean, they must have, I can tell that you and Tom and Tasso obviously got along really well. I mean, you made t-shirts.
Yeah, we made t-shirts. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could tell you.
Well, one thing I thought was pretty cool on Lauren Marie Taylor's podcast, you thought Tasso was a handsome guy. I was like, oh, that's
cool. Yes. I knew this was coming. I had such a crush. Oh my gosh, I had such a crush on Tasso. It was like I was in big trouble.
Oh, yeah. We hear crushes all the time when we talk to people.
Summer camp, it's like a summer camp.
And you're having fun. You're getting to know them, and you probably. Did it take to create that neck piece? Did that take like hours? How long did that take?
It took a little time, but that was like the first meeting.
Yeah.
Like I remember taking the train to Connecticut, and I guess Tom had set up his makeup studio in this, I don't even know whose house it was or where, it was weird because when I walked in, there were all these like weird heads. It was like a special effects. He had all his stuff and I was like, oh boy. But they were fun and cute and, we got high and we were young.
Hey, I think we just got our answer right there.
All right. Well, maybe there's one other thing that I've never said.
Oh, please tell us.
Well, the night that I went back to do that night shoot, we did row across the lake, Tasso and I, but I'm not saying anything else.
Oh, no. Oh, hanky.
I'm not saying another word except that they rowed across the lake.
Wow, we got something better than Lauren Marie Taylor.
Oh,
in a canoe. It was pretty crazy.
Wait. But were you canoodling in the canoe?
No,
See what I did there?
No canoodling. We were rowing. It was very romantic.
That's
I was sitting and we were rowing across the lake while Adrian was doing those blood-curdling screams.
While Betsy Palmer was shoving her face in the ground.
That was so intense.
Yes.
God knows what they were shooting that night.
Oh, my God. I love that. No, that is great. You have given us tons. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Robbie. We have had so much fun chatting with you, really.
You know what? I've had so much fun, too. I was looking forward to it. I've got to give a shout out to Paulie.
Oh.
Paulie Batigliera, who introduced me to you guys.
Yes.
Set this up.
Well, yes, we are very grateful, and we're so grateful for your time. Thank you so much. Seriously.
It means so much to me as a huge Friday the 13th fan. Like, you answered all the questions that I've, been thinking about for 45 years.
Oh, thank you, Tim. And it was so fun talking to you both. It was great.
Thank you, Robbie. Well, we will definitely be in touch. Have a great rest of your day, okay?
Okay, you too.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. As a patron, you get access to all our bonus content, which now includes 2 new bonus episodes every month, a monthly after show mini episode, access to our Discord community so you can chat with us directly, and the chance to review a film with us in one of our bonus episodes.
Patrons also get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the chance to vote in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.